Welcome to the December 15th Play to Practice panel. This month's subject is teamwork. I'm Rocco Camiso with Tip Chair and Trials College. And today we have...
I'm Gavin Ball. I work at Ontario Tech University and I'm an indie game developer living in Whitby.
Gavin has some amazing artwork, 2D, 3D, or Swiss Army Man of video games.
Yeah, I would say like 2D, 3D generalist. 2D animation and 3D animation. 2D art and 3D art.
Absolutely fantastic. All right. And on my right over here, we have Michael Carter.
Hello. So I'm Michael Carter. I'm basically a UX researcher and app developer at Ryerson University. So I've been doing a lot of work at app development for museums, and that's one of my specialties is trying to engage students in educational content. So yeah, a lot of my stuff deals with Unity and Arduino. Actually, is kind of what I was doing my master's at university.
Very cool. We actually have a bunch of the holograms outside, and people can, we have the screen up there with the pucks that show you the footprints and show you the models. Very cool stuff. We actually saw you guys at EGLX, and we're really happy to have you guys here today. So, talking about teamwork, do you guys prefer to work in a team, or are you guys more individuals, lone wolves?
Personally, I prefer to work in a team. It really depends on the circumstances. I found that the more I can do myself, the easier it is to find people to work with. It puts less focus on them to do everything, but I always like to work with people who are experts in their field. I've even collaborated with Michael over here on a small little project, leveraging his technology and some of the assets from our game. And I always find opportunities like that, cross-pollination that happens, really, really interesting. I'm happy to work either way, but I see the advantage of definitely working with a team.
Just to sort of go off what Gavin was saying, it definitely depends on the project. Like, there are times where if I know I can do a lot of the work myself, I will take on most of it. But there are times where I sort of, you have to understand your limitations and know what, could be done better. And if you can't do that yourself, you have to collaborate. There's no way around that. So.
I'm a privilege of that. As long as everyone's listening to what I say, we can all work as a team. All right. So the next one is, how did you guys meet?
So actually, I just graduated from Ryerson's Masters of Digital Media program, and Michael was the cohort before me. So at our final showcase in August, I was demonstrating my project, and he hung around, he came and he talked to me, he said he was kind of interested in what I was doing, he showed me what he was doing. Actually, I had met him the year before, because when I knew I was going to go to the program, I checked out the cohort of the previous year, and I saw I didn't see his project. No, but we talked. We talked after while I was in the program. He explained to me what he was doing, and I had a chance to see it. But then he hung around and did at my showcase. And we set up a time to kind of connect, and he showed me what he was doing. I was like, wow, that is really cool. And he shared some of his ideas. I shared some of my ideas, and we found a lot of overlap. We tried to figure out ways that we could potentially work together.
So what we're going to talk about next is name the moment when you guys realized you finally clicked, when this all came together. It's like, all right, this is cool.
For me, it was, I guess, two times it happened. One was when I realized, I guess, how much of a self-starter Michael is. So I could kind of say, we could do this, we could do that. And then he'd take a little bit and then kind of take a lot of initiative and go further with it, right? So, and he'd come back to me with something that maybe wasn't what I expected, but it was cool and it was something, right? So I actually like that, especially being a very busy person. And then the second was when we were at EGLX together. We shared a booth there, and just seeing the response that we got, with our collaborative efforts was really interesting. And getting like the feedback and realizing that maybe there's something there, that we could actually build out something even more elaborate, right? Time has been an issue, so that hasn't happened yet, but definitely, I think those two moments for me, this is someone I could potentially work with, and then B, we have something here that people are actually interested in. So those are the two moments for me.
Yeah, and again, branching off what Gavin was saying, I think for me it was again, when I went down to see his work at the MDM showcase, I don't know. I think Gavin is a very talented artist, 3D artist, and I saw like a lot of potential for sure. And for me, it was like I'm really particular, I guess, with the people I work with. I have a a background in project coordination, so I've been doing a lot of that, and sometimes you can't really choose your team, right? And it's tough working with the people who don't quite mesh. So for Gavin and I, we have very unique experiences, but and very different, I guess, backgrounds. But it's like we seem to correlate on a lot of things, especially with sort of like the way we develop as people as well. So these are things that I'm very, very attracted to when I work with people.
One of the things working in a team, small teams, large teams, compromise is an absolute factor. You're sometimes compromising between decisions. You're sometimes compromising on programs or applications or any of that kind of stuff. Can you guys think of a time where there was a compromise, even if not between you two, but between any of your projects, where compromise was key to get the game out?
So yeah, for me, when I was developing this educational app, right, I think one of the main things that I had to compromise was sort of, not ego, but sort of like you have to sacrifice what you think is right, because people will have their own inputs, and sometimes people know way more than you, and they definitely know better, but you might be sort of wrapped up in what you think is the best thing to do. So for me, when I was doing my master's degree, that kind of came when I was being supervised. My project was supervised by a professor, and I came to him with the first stage of, or I guess now the first version, which I thought would be the final version of my app. And I was super excited to show him. I showed him it, and he wasn't all that impressed. And I remember thinking that day, like, oh, I don't know if I chose the right person to look over my work. But turns out in the end, I created something way better, right? And that's, even though I had to make that compromise, right? I guess a sacrifice. I had to put more work in, but at the end of the day, I came up with something that's way better than what I had before. So, yeah.
One project I was working on a few years ago was a video game or an app called Buzzle with a team that I had put together called Globug Labs. Since it's defunct now, but basically I had this vision, this like art style that I wanted to pursue that was really kind of neat and stylized and cute. But then when we looked to break it down into separate tiles to actually put it into the game, there were some concessions that we had to make. Like we couldn't get it to look exactly like the concept pieces that I made, and so it was a little bit disappointing. But ultimately, in order for the project to move forward, that's kind of what we had to do, and it still ended up, I think, looking pretty good. But it didn't have that overall cohesiveness that I had hoped it would have at the beginning. There's one other thing that happened more recently. Again, while I was doing my master's at Ryerson. They have a transmedia zone, which is basically an incubation space for creatives making new types of stories, right? So I pitched my idea, which is my video game called Gladiatron, story-driven game, to facilitate families playing together. But they felt like I could probably do more with it. I could potentially come at it with a different angle. So I pivoted and I changed my idea. And I repitched as an interactive online comic. So I have this web page which you go to, and then you go, and then it's kind of like Sketchfab. If you ever heard of Sketchfab, where you can go and you can see these 3D models. There's animation, there's sound. But this it uses a framework called Babylon, which is a JavaScript library, and that's what I actually ended up using as my final project, my thesis project. And basically, what I made is an interactive little cutscene, kind of like comic-like experience on our website. So that was actually kind of an interesting thing where they challenged me, and it was my first idea. They said it's not quite unique enough. Try it and see if you can do something different. I think I came up with something that's more unique and more interesting. So that was a case where it's actually turned out really good.
Yeah, I can see you having to make a lot of concessions, like draw like this, and a lot of people are like, no one can hit that. I've seen your work. Yeah, so talking about working on projects, there's a lot of methodologies out there on how to get things done. Common known concept is waterfall. You have a game design document, you're hitting major points, and you're trying to get the project done in a sequential order, I guess is the best way. Another way is through Scrum. Every day you guys talk about stories, epics. What is this concept that we want to get across today? Is it movement? Is it a greater sense of the item system and inventory, right? Well, how many people are part of it? How long is it going to take? Do you guys use any specific methodology? Do you guys Scrum when working on the project?
Yeah, I definitely Scrum all the time, and to go off what you were asking, like what type of methodologies I use, I would say definitely anything that invokes more communication and collaboration in a sense. So Agile, Kanban is actually, I love using Kanban, even personally too, when I kind of organize my own personal tasks. It's always good to see sort of like three categories kind of thing, you know, things that need to be done or in progress, things that need or are done, and then things that are kind of early in development. And then I categorize that, even like it might even be just sort of like a grocery list or whatever for my personal like tasks that I have to do throughout the week. But yeah, anything that I think communication is key in terms of any project, and making sure that everybody can sort of get a gist of speaking each other's language, right? Do the design people understand what the developers need, right? Like everybody kind of comes with their own perspective, but as long as you have that one person who sort of understands those things, right? And this is obviously the role of the Scrum Master, right? It's important to have people who understand sort of the whole process so they can communicate these things with each team, right?
I've done Scrum before when I was in studio at Gameloft, and that was my first exposure to it. Coming more from an art background, so I went to school for animation, worked in animation studios. So that was my first time in an actual software development company, like where we were making games. I thought it was a brilliant concept, and I've since adapted it to my own projects, my own work. So I'll have small teams that we'll work with, from time to time. And generally what we'll do is, because it's all part-time progress on our projects, what we'll try to do is carve out some time once a week to meet. And we'll try to do weekly or bi-weekly sprints. So we'll review everybody's work, at each meeting, and then kind of set out the expectations for the following week or the following 2 weeks. Sometimes check in on Discord and just see how everyone's doing throughout the week. If someone needs feedback or if they need something else to progress forward, we'll do that. But I found that that's actually a good way to work. It's a little bit more tangible. We can kind of see more quickly the results of what we're doing. And another piece that I found helpful is bringing our project, even in its incomplete stage, to expos like EGLX, for example. We just went to CTN a few weeks ago, and just like different venues around our community. Anytime you get people to test your project and give you feedback, they kind of let you know, keep working on this or stop working on that, or this is what you need to focus on. And I found that dovetails perfectly with, we're working in a more Scrum-like kind of system where it's more agile, where you can kind of take that feedback, implement it quickly, and kind of continue to navigate that way. I'm still kind of trying to perfect or learn more about agile methodology, and I've recently started looking at Jira, which with its epics and it's like a whole other kind of ball game, right? But I think I've committed at this point to becoming a bit of a generalist in everything, until we can get like more experienced people to replace me.